How is a bit late today. As you can see, I'm covered in glue and paint and everything. I was doing some work. Hope you're all keeping well. Everything's good out there, and you're being good to yourselves more importantly than anything else. You know, being kind to yourself is the most important thing you can do. And I was I was watching a BBC documentary on the Oracle of Delphi, and because I'm fascinated by it, and I was planning to lead a private tour group to see some megaliths in Greece before this whole thing happened. So, as part of my studying up, and it was a BBC documentary, and despite the usual BBC patronising delivery of these historic documentaries, you know, the host's hands constantly going like this when they're explaining how important it is, and then the oracle came along, you know, they heard from the Apollo, you know, and then, you know, things about the ancient taverns of Greece were the Starbucks of their day, you know, the usual patronizing bullshit that they talk to you like you're a 5-year old, and maybe in some cases they're right, and so, but it was quite enjoyable. It was nice scenery, and it was interesting the topic, and it was taken along quite well. And then the agenda come like everything else. The agenda comes flying in, and they show like something that's a lamentation for the breakup, for a lamentation for the lack of unity among the ancient Greeks. And then the post starts to compare it to the United Nations, but subtly hinting at Brexit and things like that. You know, it was just shamefully in your face, uh, like mind control in a very gaslighting kind of way that you know, maybe the average person doesn't consciously see it, but would subconsciously absorb it right into their psyche. That like unity among nations, meaning literally demolishing your control over your immediate environment, which is ultimately what that always is about, is the most wonderful thing and the most noble human aspiration, and so on. And I couldn't watch any more of that because it was making me sick. Because it was all politics from that point out. You know, it was classic Orwellian Ministry of Information, and it's pure gaslighting. Now, you see, I said to myself, well, I was laughing at the beginning when he was comparing the ancient taverns to things like Starbucks and you know the messenger system in ancient Greece as it was the internet of its all these like usual patronizing things. And but then I remembered this morning that I was looking on, excuse me, I was looking on Facebook and I saw a very funny GIF of like a Buddhist monk guy or Hindu guy meditating on a jet aircraft as it's flying thousands of feet in the air like this, and he's sitting on the engine. Very well done, the CGI. And then it dawned on me that the person who had shared it thought it was real. She actually thought, just like well, we have flat earthers and stuff, she actually thought that the guy was really meditating on a jet engine aircraft that was flying thousands of feet in the air. And people were explaining to her, no, you couldn't do that. He'd be blown right off. And she was saying things like, yeah, but these people, these monks, these monks have incredible concentration that they wouldn't fall off the engine. You know, like that's enough internet for me for today. But you know, that's you know, so this is this. So speaking of gaslighting, we've had it in 3 countries now, and I'm sure we've had it everywhere. We've had it. The health minister in Scotland broke her lockdown. We had your man Cummins in England. We had Professor Ferguson, dickhead, in England. And we had now our own Prime Minister. Yep, our own Prime Minister. Not doing social distancing in a park with a load of friends, drinking beer. And you say to yourself, are they doing this to rub it into their faces? Are they doing this to annoy us? Are they doing this because it's one law for the rich and it's the powerful or the elites, and another law for us? And is it done to deliberately make us angry? And I don't think it is. What I think it's done is deliberately make us confused. And we know now that this whole thing of new nonlinear warfare and critical theory has made its way into the body politic of Western politics now. It started out in Russia when the avant-garde movement were enlisted by the political power base there, the Putin and his cohorts, to basically gaslight the population to keep themselves in power, under the assumption that if there's too much choice, people will always make the wrong choice. That's what it is. So you give them false choices that that deplete their psychic energy, both as an individual and as the group, and therefore they're not less likely to involve themselves in the political structure, that the real political structure. So you give them a fake paradigm to put their energies in. So you have these political parties. They literally created political parties that don't exist. They were created by PR agencies, and they have youth rallies supporting these political parties that don't exist. And this is to distract the masses who might be fed up with the government, to make them follow a red herring. But it goes much deeper than that. The red herring then enters into a coalition and ends up supporting the government that they originally were against. And you saw that in the Ukraine thing. Nobody knew who was fighting who in the Ukraine. This is like 10 years ago. Who was the good guys? Who was the bad guy? What was going on? When life was going on normally, there was apparently pitched battles. There were mock battles. There were real battles. Nobody knew what was going on in the Ukraine. And that's because the same critical theory people that hired by Putin had made a false reality to put the Ukrainian people in. And that's what's happening, I think, with both Ferguson. In Ferguson's case, I'd say it's different. He was just an elitist snob who knew that there was no danger in the virus, and was full of his own ego. Classic pride comes before a fall thing, and thinking he could get his woman and do his own thing and get away with it. The classic ego thing, thinking with his dick and not thinking with his head. And that's what happened there. But in the case of Cummings, in the case of Taoiseach Varadkar, stop calling Irish politicians by their first name. Please stop I fucking implore you to stop calling politicians by their first name. They are not your mates. They are not your friends. That's a psyop. That's gaslighting as well. Stop it. And so, he was caught doing it, the Prime Minister of the country, and it already happened with the Health Minister in Scotland. And I'm pretty sure that's because the same critical theory analysts and communicators and PR people are being hired now by the governments in the West, just like they were in Russia, to confuse, gaslight, make people not know what's real, what's up, what's down, and eventually just throw in their consciousness and say, the hell with that. And that's the purpose of critical theory. Ultimately, a lot of this stuff comes from the likes of the New School, the Frankfurt School, and all the cultural Marxist thing. But it takes it one step further again. It brings in this is why there's always been a close association between not always, but like in the last, say, 40 years, a close association between avant-garde architects, artists, and like the likes of the Rockefellers, and the way they mollycoddled the like of Hans Hofmann from Cooper Union in New York, and this kind of thing. They just to rebuild your consciousness, it in such a way that it acquiesces to the control structure. Now this This is why they're doing it. It's not to make you angry. Well, it makes people angry and pisses them off, but it's purely a superficial response. The anger is what they want. And you think, well, I'm going to march now. We're going to go down there and get them now, and it's like, you're just making a fool of yourself. You're playing into their traps. Like I always say, that the best way to deal with a pathological individual is no contact ever again. And although we're driven, well, I never was, but many people are driven by the idea, this altruistic idea that somehow you have a stake or an obligation to your nation or to the sense of justice within that nation. Remember, you're stepping into a game where you're essentially an NPC. It doesn't have any power. It doesn't matter how big up there you are, unless you're actually in the game as a player, and not an NPC. You don't have a chance, and all you do is sacrifice your life energy. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people having a noble idea and wanting to, better humanity or society, but it doesn't work like that. You're not playing with the same real rule book that they are, and this is a major problem. This is to you end up depleting your psychic energy in order to, until you figure out one day that it is bullshit, and the best thing to do is to sort of like start working on yourself. You see, because of this salvationist idea that's been handed to us by Christianity, this notion that there's going to be an event, there's going to be, it ultimately comes back from the second coming of Jesus Christ, and by extension, they transfer that into things like, even flying saucers are going to come and save us, or there's going to be a grand convergence, or the Schumann resonance is going to change, or there's a secret elite, Goldstein, the classic one in 1984. It's going to come up and help us. It doesn't exist. It's not there. And it's also what's happening why you have this belief and this sort of like salvationist idea is that you're robbing yourself of your own potential to, I wouldn't say save yourself. I don't like that kind of language, but to actually fully utilize your consciousness engagement and your personal and your everyday engagement with this reality in such a way that can enhance the world for you. And I honestly do believe that if everyone does this for themselves, that they will all, this is what by osmosis would change things. Now, there's no such thing as utopias, and there's no such thing, and I always distrust people who are driven by the idea we can have a better world if we do this. It's just like Voltaire said, who was a piece of shit himself, but it's true because he was telling us the truth about his kind of people. This desire to save humanity is nearly always a mass to control it. And that's why I don't trust anyone who says we can do this, we can have a better world. Wake up, It's like I don't live on a fucking prison planet. I'm not the bottom of a pyramid. I'm not on my knees. Like you see these types saying that like, oh, we're at the bottom of the pyramid, and how you bring the pyramid down is, they always have the stupid all-seeing eye symbol at the top. How you bring the pyramid down is that the ones at the bottom walk away, the whole pyramid will come crashing down. If you know anyone who is, I'm not putting down David Icke, okay, but if you know anyone who is a David Icke supporter, get them to this part of the video from this point on. And anyone who has this belief of the Illuminati and we're at the bottom of the pyramid, and this is, get them, share this video with them at this point on. If it's your wife in the kitchen making the dinner, tell her to stop for a second and just listen to this. If it's your friend who, call them up and tell them to listen to this point on. This is very important. This is real knowledge I'm giving you now here. This is, and use this and cherish this for the rest of your life. When they talk about removing the stones from the bottom of the pyramid, i.e. as an allegory or an analogy for us at the bottom, they're not describing a pyramid. They're describing a triangle. A pyramid is made up of four sides. The one side that creates the political system with this all-seeing eye looking, they tell us, looking down towards us plebs, is but one side of the pyramid. The other three sides are made out of creativity, love, and spiritual elevation. A pyramid is four sides, not one. When you hear those analogies about the bottom of the pyramid and removing it, they're talking about a triangle. They're not talking about a pyramid. A pyramid is made of four sides, and you are on the other three, all the way from the top to the bottom. And this is one of the greatest secrets of the esoteric that no one's ever told you. They have you thinking in terms of triangles when it's really a pyramid. And love, creativity, and spiritual development is the other three sides of that pyramid. And you are the body of the entire thing. And they have you concentrating on one side of the pyramid only, i.e., a single triangle. And they have you thinking that that triangle is the sum total of the four sides of the total of the pyramid. It's not. Your consciousness has the ability to control, exist, be among the other full three sides. And then suddenly, what does that make that story? Think about it. Are you a triangle or are you a pyramid? And is one side of your pyramid getting too much attention because it's focused on things like power, politics, and so on, when the other three sides of the pyramid that you really need to concentrate on, love, creativity, and your spiritual development, you're ignoring them because you're convinced that on one side that's made up of the pathological control system is the only side of the pyramid. No, you're concentrating on a triangle. See the pyramid as a four-sided object. Things are now very different, aren't they? Suddenly, you've woken up in a different kind of way. Interesting, isn't it? Now, what does that tell you? That you have been deliberately and purposely made to face the one side of the pyramid that's been robbing you of all your potential. The part of the pyramid in shade, in complete darkness, where the other three sides are either in twilight or in full sunshine, and you've completely ignored them because you've been told to concentrate on the one side that makes you feel like you're shit, that makes you feel like you're on your knees, that puts you in a prison planet. From this point on, don't ever think that you're in a prison planet. Don't ever think that you're on your knees. Think that you are a pyramid and you have three sides of it, and that one side of it is just one aspect of it that's not any more important than the other three. Creativity, love, and spiritual development. Now you are ready to begin the hero's journey. Now the infant ego has been birthed into consciousness. Now you can be like the Fool card in the tarot, and you can take that first step into fulfilling your monomyth. Because you now know you're not determined exclusively by the paradigms and the demarcation lines of a single side of one pyramid, i.e. a triangle, which really represents the material world in terms of how you don't develop it. Where the other three, creativity, love, and spiritual development, that's the part of the material universe that you build, that you create. Look after yourselves.